National Allies is a coordination of organizations based in the United States, Canada, and Australia that for over 13, 14 years have been working with communities in El Salvador in support of their struggle to keep their water clean, particularly uh, keep it clean from the mining industry. That is one of the major threats that the environmental crisis in El Salvador has at this stage. You, if you have been following El Salvador for the last few years, you will know that in 2017, the Legislative Assembly of El Salvador passed a law that prohibited mining in the country. And this was the result of about 12 years of organizing and community protests and demanding that El Salvador prohibit metal mining because of the conditions that the country has that are not appropriate for an industry as aggressive as the mining industry is. But last year, right on the 23rd of December of 2024, the new government of El Salvador, the government of Nayib Bukele, passed a new mining law, which at the same time eliminated the mining prohibition in the country. And this new mining law, it's a law that has become one of the main threats for the Salvadorans' right to clean water. It is a law that it's a very general law. We don't know any specifics of it, but it allows the government to develop partnerships with private companies to allow them to exploit gold in the country without any public oversight, without any control from the Legislative Assembly, without any control from any institutions. It is directly the executive branch of the government that can control what happens during the mining process. This is a symptom of what El Salvador has been going through over the last 5 years since the arrival of the government of Nayib Bukele, that slowly has become a government that has centralized all the decision making in the executive branch. The executive branch and the party Nuevas Ideas, which is the party of Nayib Bukele, has control of the Legislative Assembly, has control of all the institutions that are supposed to provide a check and balances for the government. It has also gained control of the judicial system by appointing unconstitutionally many members of the Supreme Court and many members of the judiciary, and slowly has been changing the country or the regulations in the country so that the authoritarian nature of the government becomes entrenched into everyday everyday activities. The last few moves that the government has made has been against civil society organizations. In June, the government passed what's called the Foreign Agents Law, a law that requires all non-governmental organizations to register with the government and to report any funding that comes from international development agencies. These are required to register as foreign agents. And as such, if the government deems that some of the political activities that these organizations are doing have a political nature, it imposes a 30% tax on the funding that comes into for these organizations, and at the same time creates penalties that are of the hundreds of thousands of dollars for these organizations if they're deemed to be breaking the law. This has become kind of like the latest push that the government has made against what they consider to be their political enemies. In this case, are civil society organizations. And this was the result of the protest that people generated after the mining prohibition was lifted by the government in December 2024, and the protests that came for the new against the new mining laws. To talk a little bit more about this, we have invited different speakers. Particularly, the focus of this event would be the work that faith communities have done in defending the environment in El Salvador. And we're going to be presenting a letter that is an international letter signed by about 160 organizations in support of the different churches that have been speaking out against the mining laws in the country. To give us a little bit of context of the mining prohibition and how we got there, we're going to invite John Cavana, who is a senior advisor for the Institute for Policy Studies. He's also an author, the co-author of the book, The Water Defenders, How Ordinary People Were Able to Defeat Corporate Greed. He has written the book with Robin Broad, who is also a professor at Washington University. And they have been long time friends of El Salvador for the last, at least as far as I remember, for the last 15 years, they have been coming to El Salvador, developing relationships with organizations in the country, developing personal relationships with some of the leaders that were part of the characters of the book that he wrote, and also providing international support for the anti-mining movement in El Salvador. So we're gonna welcome John Cavana.
Thanks so much, Pedro. And it's wonderful to be here with all of you today, both journalists, some of you are journalists, leaders of groups that have signed the faith statement that we're launching today, and people who fought against toxic mining all over the world. My job here is simple, as Pedro has said, just to give you some quick background on three key moments in this fraught relationship between El Salvador and toxic mining. The first moment is one that I bet few of you know, which is that large-scale mining was introduced into El Salvador 140 years ago, when a US miner named Charles Butters started mining in the eastern part of El Salvador in a small community called San Sebastian, using what was then a brand new process that he helped innovate of using cyanide to separate gold from the surrounding rock. Now, fast forward 120 years, this very mine became the centerpiece of opposition to mining in El Salvador starting 20 years ago, when the Water Defenders of El Salvador brought people from all around the world, including some of you, to visit the toxic streams that still emanate from the mine decades after the mine closed. The dangers of toxic mining, the fragile river systems of El Salvador, as you know, helped galvanize a massive movement in El Salvador against mining. Leaders of many religious faiths played a key role in this movement. Indeed, it was the current Archbishop Escobar Alas who led the march to the Salvadoran legislature in early 2017 with a draft law that would prohibit all metals mining in the country. In what the Archbishop would call a miracle, the law passed unanimously, as Pedro said, on March 29, 2017, making El Salvador the first nation on earth to ban mining to save its rivers. The Archbishop told Robin and me back in 2019 that he saw this as a miracle. And as a result, El Salvador is surrounded by toxic mines in Guatemala, in Honduras, and in Nicaragua, but there is no commercial mining in El Salvador today. What an incredible win. So this brings us to the third and final moment. A year ago, as Pedro mentioned, in this month of December, current Salvadoran President Nayib Bukele, who has been salivating over the prospect of mining gold as gold prices have skyrocketed, now over $4,000 an ounce. He started to press his legislature for a new mining law that would overturn the 2017 prohibition. And with a legislature where Bukele controls 57 of the 60 votes, on December 23, 2024, Bukele's party rammed through a new mining law that allows mining back in the country. It omits environmental impact assessments. It lacks any transparent information on mining activities, and it does not require consultation or consent of the communities that will be impacted. This law stands in the face of a recent poll done by the University of Central America, UCA, that was released right before that law change, that found that 61%, that's over 3 in 5 Salvadorans, oppose a return to mining. So we have our work cut out for us today in fighting to prevent mining companies from coming back into El Salvador. And today's faith statement, signed by over 150 organizations in 25 countries from every continent, is a huge contribution to this work. Thank you. Back to you, Pedro.
Beyond trying to control crime, the government is utilizing this state of exception to persecute its political opponents. So we have a number of political leaders that are also under detention. We have union leaders, and we have a number of environmentalists and human rights defenders that are also incarcerated as part of this campaign the government has against civil society organizations. So along with instituting laws to control the activities of civil society organizations, there is also a campaign of persecution, political persecution against people that are perceived to be the government's enemies. The only institution that is still speaking out against the government and denouncing the violations of human rights are the churches. And the Catholic Church, the Bishop of San Salvador in August, publicly on national television denounced the mining, the lifting of the mining prohibition, and asked the government to bring the mining back, to bring the prohibition back. He also denounced constitutional changes that were made that perpetuated or that opened the door for the perpetuation of the current president in power in the country. And today, the Central American Bishops' Conference issued a statement as well, denouncing that not only El Salvador, but the whole Central American region is under attack by mining companies, and the whole Central American society it's being threatened by this industry in the country. And the person who actually read that statement is the Bishop of San Salvador, Jose Luis Escobar Alas. So as international allies in support of these communities, the faith communities that are actually still defending the environment, still defending the rights of people, we decided to organize this letter at the international level to have different expressions of faith around the world to support what the churches, the different churches in El Salvador are doing to defend the environment. And to talk a little bit more about the letter, we're going to ask Christy Neufeld from the United Church of Canada. She's the coordinator of global partnerships of the United Church of Canada. And she has been working very closely with international allies, particularly over the last 3 years that we have been focused on a human rights case in El Salvador and Cabañas, which we will hear a little bit more later. And she's worked in Central America for a number of years, particularly in Guatemala and El Salvador, where the United Church has partnerships. So welcome, Christy.
Thanks very much, Pedro, and good to be here this afternoon with all of you. And I thank you very much for that in-depth detail, bringing us up to this point, and the importance of this letter of faith communities around the world declaring their solidarity with faith leaders in El Salvador. And I think it's just really, really important to lift up that piece that faith leaders are one, in particular the Catholic Church, are one of the few institutions in El Salvador that have space to speak out at this time. Hence the real importance of faith communities around the world kind of being I want to say a hug, a circle of solidarity with faith leaders in El Salvador. I am Global Partnerships Coordinator for Latin America and the Caribbean for the United Church of Canada. And the United Church is a member of International Allies Against Mining in El Salvador. And as Pedro said, we've been one of the organizers of this faith letter with others here who are present here today that's being launched today. For the United Church, this letter grows out of partnerships with communities and faith groups in El Salvador that date back decades. We have had the privilege to accompany the Santa Marta community's struggle to protect its and the country's, El Salvador's, scarce water resources from metals mining. Already, that struggle's been talked about by both John and by Pedro. And we'll hear more about that as this webinar continues. Our work in this area also, as the United Church of Canada, arises from a sense of accountability for the fact that the majority of the world's mining companies are Canadian. And I just want to speak a little bit to the letter and to its faith components, because speaking from perspective of the United Church of Canada, a Christian church. This letter is a hope-filled expression of solidarity and ecumenism in the face of forces that would degrade the earth, repress human rights, the right to self-determination, and erode democracy, for all of the reasons that you just heard described, for the context in El Salvador, and for this moment that we can kind of see we're living in different places around the world. It's a sign that the sacred duty to protect water is a shared value across continents and across Christian religious expressions and divides. It is also a sign that the struggle to end persecution and criminalization of those defending the right to clean water in this time and place resonates globally. I think that's a really important sign to take note of, those two things. As we launch this faith declaration, I'd like to invite us to take a step back, and you can see the link that's posted in the chat. To take a step back and appreciate the scope of the 153 organizations that have signed on from the 25 different countries, to really appreciate the scope of solidarity being expressed today with Salvadorian faith leaders. So I just want to take a moment to apologize in case you don't see your organization reflected into my attempt to paint a picture of the different organizations that have signed on. So, and that will just, that reflects the diversity of the number of different organizations that have signed on. So thank you. Thank you to all who've signed on. So faith organizations from Asia, Africa, Europe, Latin America, the Caribbean, and North America have all expressed their affirmation that access to water is a fundamental human right, and that clean water is not a commodity, but a shared inheritance entrusted to all people by God. Organizations that have global reach, such as the Global Ecumenical Water Network of the World Council of Churches, we'll hear from someone, from Susan, who will speak from that perspective. Green Faith, another international faith-based organization. Pax Christi, a Catholic global network of nearly 100 grassroots organizations. All these organizations with global reach remind us that ending the mining ban in El Salvador is fueling egregious rights violations against those organizing to protect their water and land from destruction. Regional and national councils of churches from the Middle East, Africa, Canada, and Latin America, church-based development agencies, interfaith dialogue organizations, ecumenical organizations, biblical universities, training centers, student Christian federations from around the world are all amplifying the call of Salvadorian religious leaders that the government of El Salvador not threaten, stigmatize, or persecute people and organizations that are carrying out their duties to protect water, land, and communities, and support their call for the immediate dropping of charges against water defenders and human rights lawyers. Catholic religious orders, Catholic and Protestant church denominations, and individual Protestants and individuals. And among the Protestants are Mennonites, Baptists, Anglicans, Presbyterians, Quakers, United Churches, and Universalists. And they're all praying for Salvadorian people and their government that they protect the sacred gift of creation, uphold human rights, and ensure every family clean water now and for generations to come. So I'm feeling right now for the translator, given all of that church-ese. I hope that was okay. And as we wrap this up, may all people of goodwill, whether of faith or no faith, give thanks for this global expression of unified support for Salvadorian faith leaders and their sacred work to protect their country's scarce water resources. May we give thanks.
Thank you, Christy. As you all know, and as has been mentioned, one of the key organizations that has helped us organize this letter at the international level has been Faith in Action. And to speak on behalf of Faith in Action, we have Gordon Whitman, who is the Director of International Organizing of Faith in Action. He's a lawyer, a community organizer, and I don't know him very well, but just yesterday I got references from him, from somebody working in one of the local organizations here in El Salvador. Global Witness is a partner, one of the strongest community organizing, Catholic community organizing organizations in the country. This organization has been responsible for a number of policies that have been presented to the Legislative Assembly, and they were also part of the movement to prohibit mining in the country. So we're welcoming Gordon Whitman to talk a little bit about what the importance is of the international community supporting local organizations in El Salvador.
Thank you, Pedro and John and Christy, just for a lifetime commitment to Central America and El Salvador and to being so vigilant in organizing this call. So Faith in Action stands in strong support for the Salvadoran people and their faith communities who overwhelmingly oppose the reintroduction of metal mining. Faith in Action is a global movement of people of faith working to ensure that every person has access to clean water, sanitation, education, healthcare, housing, and most importantly, a say over the decisions that shape their life. For the past 15 years, we've supported successful organizing campaigns by grassroots leaders in El Salvador and across Central America to bring clean water to their communities and homes. We've done that through our partners at Communities of Faith Organizing for Action, COFOA, which celebrated, I think is celebrating 16 years of grassroots organizing across El Salvador and Central America. As you know, all of our faith traditions teach that water is a sacred gift of God. It is a sin to render water undrinkable. Our physical bodies are more than 60% water, and recognizing the inherent dignity of each person is inseparable from recognizing the sacredness of water. We are deeply, deeply moved, given the conditions in El Salvador and Central America and our hemisphere, by the courageous witness of Salvadorans struggling against special interests who would sacrifice the public health of children and families in order to line their pockets. From El Salvador's most prominent faith leaders to local communities, Salvadorans are speaking out in a clear and united voice against mining. Ordinary Salvadorans already face enormous challenges obtaining clean water each day, a problem that would only get worse with a return to mining. ANDA, the state water agency, the government water agency, reported in 2022 that one half of all Salvadorans had, quote, intermittent access to water, meaning that for a week or longer, people can go without water coming out of their taps. And those who do have water, half report the quality being very poor. 1/4 of all businesses, including small businesses, report insufficient access to water to carry out their functions. And 600,000 Salvadoran people don't have access to any clean water. Last statistic, 90% of Salvador's surface water is contaminated already. So there is no feasible way to mine for gold, which is what's being proposed, without widespread use of cyanide. And we all know this, but it's worth just saying it. Cyanide is a killer chemical that destroys water, makes it undrinkable. Restarting mining would be catastrophic to the Rio Lempa and other watersheds on which rural and urban communities rely. Mining will be especially harmful to the 1 in 10 Salvadorans who rely on surface water to survive. So we urge the Salvadoran government to heed the cries of the Salvadoran people and their faith leaders to protect rather than destroy the country's fragile watersheds. And we encourage and ask U.S. and foreign companies considering investment in gold mining in El Salvador to look elsewhere. It's a pleasure to be here. Turn it back to you, Pedro.
Thank you very much, Gordon. It's very important to the last part that you mentioned, the fact that the issue of mining in El Salvador or any community around the world, it's an issue that concerns not only Salvadorans but also concerns citizens of the countries where these companies have their offices, like host countries like the United States, Canada, Australia, Brazil, all these countries that are known for their mining, strong mining programs, are also responsible for regulating the companies that are operating in Central America, and the citizens themselves are also responsible for demanding that their governments regulates these mining companies that are responsible for human rights violations all over the world, where we also have hundreds and hundreds of communities defending their water and their territories. To talk a little bit about the defense of water around the world, we have invited Susan Smith, who is a professor, also a member of the Ecumenical Water Network. She has been involved with us, supporting us in developing. She's one of the stars of the video that we'll be presenting at the end of this meeting. And we've asked her to talk a little bit about what does it look like? What does the struggle to defend water look like in El Salvador, and also in different parts of the world where you guys have presence as the Ecumenical Water Network?
Thank you, Pedro. I bring you greetings today on behalf of the Ecumenical Water Network of the World Council of Churches. For 20 years now, EWN has collaborated with faith communities around the world to advocate on behalf of the human right to water and all of the other aspects of water justice. Our work has involved not only global advocacy at the international level to establish the human right to water and seek its implementation at that level, but also to work with member churches and coalitions of member churches to go ahead and address the conditions on the ground. We actually have two organizations that have been birthed from EWN. EWN Africa works with communities there, and EWN Brazil, actually led by a Catholic priest who is a university professor, has worked in Brazil to try in many different ways to advance the cause of clean water. What happens on the ground totally depends on the situation, and it simply differs from one place to another. So I can't give you a generic sense, but it can include sponsoring protests of government permitting actions. It can involve education through the churches of the people to let them know what the dangers are that are associated with mining. There are just so many different things that can be done. One of the things that we encountered here in Oregon is that we had a law known as the Three Basin Rule. About 50 years ago, Oregon wholly banned industrial pollution, not just mining, but all industrial pollution in the three river basins that provide drinking water to our major cities. The biggest test of our laws of the Three Basin Rule came years later when a Canadian mining company by the name of Kinross Gold sought to open a copper mine alongside the river that provides drinking water for my hometown of Salem. I ended up serving as the lawyer for the communities opposing the Kinross mine in Oregon. We battled for 7 years in permitting agencies, the courts, and the legislature. But ultimately, we were able to maintain the Three Basin Rule and protect our drinking water from metal mining pollution. In doing so, we not only protected our own drinking water, but we protected the lives of the steelhead, trout, and salmon whose homes are found in those rivers. Kinross may be a name that's familiar to some of you because it was a Kinross subsidiary which sought permits to open the El Dorado mine in Salvador. And Kinross now has acquired a significant stake in Relevant Gold, which now seeks to mine in El Salvador. I'm rather an opponent of Kinross. Water is God's gift to creation, providing life to all. And we as churches are called to treasure and protect God's gift. The El Salvadoran people know what it's like to experience pollution from metal mining. And in their wisdom, they decided that they would go ahead and ban metal mining outright because the rapacious mining industry provides paltry benefits to the people and really just lines the pockets, fills them up, the pockets of North American and sometimes Australian mining companies. We stand in solidarity with the Salvadoran people, their faith leaders, and civil society as they oppose the further poisoning of their waters by metal mining. They once again, under the new government, must face the great challenge of protecting their waters from mining. We pray that they will be steadfast and courageous in the battle to protect their drinking water. In Genesis, God calls us all to care for the whole of creation. So we, as the Ecumenical Water Network, ask all WCC member churches to discern with the Salvadoran churches how we may best support them in this battle. We seek to stand beside them, to accompany them as they try to protect the human right to safe drinking water, as well as the rights of all creation to the water that is God gives. We beseech God to give the Salvadoran people strength and to protect them from the threats that are being made to all of civil society by this new government. We beseech God to give them victory in this battle for water justice. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Susan, and thank you for that reminder that some of the companies that are always attacking us in El Salvador, also they have they're perpetrators of attacks against communities in North America. Because I think it's important. Sometimes we don't think about it, right? We talk about the fact that we're defending ourselves against these giants, but what we don't know many times is that these giants are also attacking First Nations communities, rural communities, and in their own countries. So it's important that we make these connections and organize and denounce these companies not only in our countries but at the global level. Kim Ross also reminds us that like companies, they don't necessarily leave a territory. They when it's strategic for them to leave, they leave because they know they're not going to make a profit. But when they see the possibility of having a profit, they come back. And this is what's happening. What's happening that you're telling us, and it's a very key piece of information that we actually should follow up and keep an eye on not only Kinross but all the companies that are actually trying to raise funding and money to come to El Salvador, because we need to not at this early stage. It's important to denounce so that people and investors don't invest in these companies, and investors know that these companies will come and they will waste their money here, because I think the Salvadorian people is bent on the fact that we don't want mining in the country, and we'll continue to struggle. We'll adapt to our circumstances in order to ensure that these companies never set foot in this country. So thank you very much for that. Cardinal Ramazzini has not connected. He's a very busy person who graciously committed to be part of this meeting and has helped us with the video, providing a statement to the video that we're making that will accompany this campaign. But he's a really busy man. He's involved in many social struggles in Guatemala, and at the same time that he's working, he's doing his faith-related work. And so if he's not able to join, hopefully we can have him in a different moment. We were going to ask him to talk about the defense of water at the Central American level, because not only he has been involved in Guatemala, but also he has with the church, as I mentioned today, that the Central American Bishops' Conference of the Catholic Church issued a statement on mining. Many of the churches are working at the regional level to coordinate and to support communities that are being affected by mining. But since he's not going to be here, we're going to ask Alfredo Leiva, he's a member of the board of directors of ARES, to join us. Alfredo has been very important in a campaign that we as international allies have supported since 2023, when 5 environmental defenders of the community of Santa Marta and the organization of ARES were detained by the Salvadorian Attorney General, and they were charged with a bogus crime that supposedly took place in 1989 in the context of the Salvadorian Civil War. Legally, we have proven time and time again that the charges have no basis. There has been a trial 2 times, and both times a jury has determined that the 5 environmental leaders are innocent. And we have argued that the only reason why they're being criminalized by the Attorney General is because these people, first, they were key in bringing the prohibition of mining back in 2017, and they were also key in denouncing the government's attempt to bring back mining starting in 2019. And we were proven right, because when they were detained, the government still had not announced that they had the intention to bring back mining into the country, and we continued to announce that we were seeing signals that mining was coming. And sure enough, last year the mining prohibition was lifted, and a new mining law was introduced, as we have talked about. So to talk to us about the case, the case against the Santa Marta Five is still ongoing, despite of the fact that we have been litigating for the last 2.5 years, defending our Santa Marta friends. The government continues to delay the resolution that declares them that has declared them innocent since August. So to talk a little bit about the Santa Marta case, we have invited Alfredo from Ares to join us. Adelante, Alfredo.
Hola, buenas tardes a todos y todas las presentes. Un saludo a Cristi, a John, a Susan por sus intervenciones y un agradecimiento enorme para todos y todas que están en este espacio en solidaridad con El Salvador. Y bueno, para comentar un poco, ya Pedro se refería a los antecedentes de las capturas de los 5 compañeros. Decir de que a partir de 2021 nosotros empezamos a ver indicios de que el gobierno tenía una apuesta clara por reabrir la minería metálica en El Salvador. Y ahí podemos enumerar, a pesar de que Pedro lo dijo, ya lo menciono brevemente, hablamos de que El Salvador se une a un panel internacional que promueve la minería sostenible, dicen. También crea la nueva ley de la Dirección General de Energía, Hidrocarburos y Minas. De igual manera, en 2022, asignan un presupuesto de $4.5 millones para revisar y actualizar la ley que prohíbe la minería. Entonces, en ese contexto, nosotros empezamos a denunciar todos esos indicios que ya veíamos venir, que se iba a reaperturar la minería. Entonces, en su estrategia el gobierno por allanar el camino para que las empresas mineras no tuvieran ninguna resistencia en el territorio, se da a la estrategia de descabezar el movimiento de resistencia. Y ahí pues captura a 5 compañeros acusándolos de un crimen que se cometió supuestamente en el conflicto armado en el año 89 concretamente. Sin embargo, nosotros entendimos desde el primer momento que se trataba de esa estrategia precisamente, de crear las condiciones para neutralizar la resistencia contra los proyectos mineros. Ha sido un caso muy largo, propiamente con todas las características de un proceso de criminalización, pues hay una estrategia dilatoria de parte del sistema judicial para que el caso no se cierre. Y muy a pesar de como ya mencionaba Pedro, que los compañeros han sido absueltos por 2 veces, por 2 tribunales diferentes. Sin embargo, el caso no se cierra. En agosto, que después de repetir el juicio contra los compañeros, se queda de entregar 10 días posteriores la resolución por escrito. Sin embargo, se posterga para el 28 de noviembre y luego un día antes se notifica que no se puede entregar la resolución porque se está bajo el argumento de estar revisando y hacer una entrega hasta el 19 de diciembre. Entonces, y eso para nosotros es interpretado como una estrategia de ir dilatando el proceso y que no se cierre. Y de esa manera, pues, se sigue el calvario, por decirlo de alguna manera, de los compañeros, porque durante no se entregue o sea, la importancia que tiene la entrega de la resolución por escrita es que a partir de ese momento comienza a contar el periodo de apelación. Es decir, la fiscalía a estas alturas todavía tiene la oportunidad de poder apelar el proceso y, por supuesto, alargarlo, porque si se da un periodo de apelación, entonces durante no se cierre, no se declare en firme la resolución y de esa manera pues sigue el proceso contra los compañeros y eso de alguna manera pues si a eso le agregamos, por ejemplo, la ley de agentes extranjeros que persigue a las organizaciones, ya directamente como ADES nosotros no pudiéramos hacer una defensa abierta. Tendríamos que hacerlo de otra forma porque eso implicaría una situación complicada para ADES al estar bajo ese régimen, que si hacemos acciones de protesta pública, por ejemplo, podemos ser objeto de una sanción como las que establece la ley, que es de 150 y hasta $200,000. Entonces, esas son multas que la ley establece que son impagables para una organización como la nuestra o para cualquier organización en el país. Entonces, la persecución no solo se reduce a la detención de líderes ambientalistas, de derechos humanos, sino también a una persecución a expresiones organizadas que hasta el momento pues ha sido, después de la concentración del poder en Casa Presidencial, ha sido digamos, el único contrapeso que el gobierno salvadoreño tiene, que es la organización social a partir de la protesta, a partir de la denuncia de lo que está ocurriendo. Entonces yo, por nuestra parte, eh, eh, o sea, tomamos a bien el, el, el hecho de apoyar con esta declaratoria a las organizaciones de las iglesias salvadoreñas, que son las que ahora mismo pues tienen la posibilidad de continuar en la lucha sin mayor persecución. No quiero decir que no pueden ser víctimas de persecución, sin embargo, es lo que queda ahora. Y por eso la importancia de que se muestre el apoyo para que a través de esos mecanismos podamos continuar la resistencia comunitaria contra estos proyectos mineros. Muchas gracias.
Thank you, Alfredo. I just want to mention a couple of things following up Alfredo's comments. One is that beyond the case of the Santa Marta 5, there are also other key cases of friends and comrades that have been incarcerated by the government for defending the environment. And we can mention the case of Jose Angel, who is a preacher and a pastor with the Elim Evangelical Church in El Salvador. He was detained along with Alejandro Enriquez, who is a young lawyer, environmentalist, who were defending a community of 300 people that were going to be displaced from their place of living by a legal process that where they had lost their homes. We also have the case of Ruth Lopez, who is a lawyer who is a well-known anti-corruption lawyer who has denounced the government, the different and has investigated different cases of corruption with the government. She was also the author of a constitutional challenge that was presented to to the mining laws of the government back in March this year. They all have been incarcerated for very bogus charges that don't necessarily require any time in jail, minimal charges, but because of the current context in which we have, they have been in jail for like almost more than 6 months, and they still haven't had a day in courts. So along with the case of Santa Marta, we're also following many cases of environmentalists and human rights defenders and political leaders that have been unjustly incarcerated by the government. Much control of communications that, we need to break that barrier, and we can do it only with the help of our friends outside of El Salvador. So this is very important. I don't know if there are any questions that people have. Let me look at the.
There's one, Pedro, from Olivia at Common Dreams, asking about the link between the rise of authoritarianism and mining. And just quick thought on that, others may have thoughts as well. If you look at the three major authoritarian governments in Latin America, Ecuador, Argentina, El Salvador, all of them have enormous mineral resources. And one thing that's been happening in the huge energy transition towards so-called clean energy is a huge increase in demand for a number of minerals, lithium, copper, cobalt, manganese, and so on. The prices of all of these are going up. The price of gold in these uncertain times has gone to unimaginable heights. All of that has led to oligarchs linked to extractivism pumping more money into elections. We're about to see a rightward shift in Honduras and Chile, both countries with major mining industries, extractivism. And so the link between the powerful corporations corrupting political systems and the rise of authoritarianism is one of the things we've got to face and fight against.
Adding a little bit to that, it's in El Salvador particularly, the issue of mining is linked to the government's overall agenda, which is an extractivist agenda. Not only is opening the doors for mining, but there is an initiative to look for thorium and exploit thorium for the production of nuclear energy. Another extractivist part of the agenda is the development of the tourist industry in the coast, where many people have been displaced so that they can feed the government's Surf Sea tourism initiative. There has been an increase on the sugarcane production in the country ever since this government came. This is based on the relationship that they have with Korea and China, who are the main recipients of Salvadorian sugarcane. And then mining, right? Despite of the fact that the government has taken all these initiatives, the economy of El Salvador is failing. Like the only success that Nayib Bukele can claim with a very high human rights cost is the security issue, because it really has made an important change in the dynamics of communities that were actually ridden by gangs for decades, and people are very appreciative of that. But the economy in El Salvador it's not doing well. Like we're the slowest growing economy in Central America. We are the economy that receives less foreign investment. We're the economy that is more indebted, and this has occurred within the time of Nayib Bukele. We have been acquiring debt in order for the government to implement their programs. There is no job creation. As a matter of fact, we're losing formal employment because the government it's implementing cuts in the different ministries. The government is the main employer in El Salvador, and they have reduced the number of positions that they have every year. And what is growing is informal employment. Informal employment that doesn't warranty any benefits, any employment rights, and on top of that, the government has created initiatives to tax the informal economy so they can generate revenue from that. So in terms of economy, the government is in crisis and El Salvador is in crisis. And mining could be or is seen by the government as a solution for their economic failures, because they see in the mining industry a source of foreign investment that could come relatively quick, at a very high cost, obviously.
Pedro, I have maybe one additional comment on that connection. It's not at all surprising that the opposition to mining comes from the people, and so it's absolutely natural that the oligarchs, that the transnational corporations are going to want to crack down on public dissent to policies. And so it's an intimate connection between authoritarianism and any extractive industry, including mining.
Yes, thank you, Susan. There is another question here. It's about the militarization of Cabañas. The question is by Amalia Lopez, and it's asking, is Cabañas still being militarized, and do you have a sense of how many young people have to leave as a result of the threats of mining from their territories? Maybe this is something that Alfredo can answer, if there is any answer for that.
Pues realmente después del operativo, después del cerco militar a Cabañas, en 2024, sí hay militarización, pero no es en las mismas dimensiones como en el año anterior. Y realmente sí hay, digamos, una gran presión hacia los jóvenes. Hay mucha migración, o sea, no contamos con datos específicos, pero sí hay mucha migración de las comunidades. Han habido muchos jóvenes detenidos y que están en esa condición, pues que hasta ahora no han recibido ni siquiera una audiencia donde puedan demostrar su inocencia. Y pues, quizás sea nuestra valoración, pero consideramos de que el mismo contexto político económico del país ha llevado a que quizás no estén dadas las condiciones, y entonces las personas que andaban aquí, los operadores que andaban en el territorio, de un tiempo acá, pues han dejado de hacer presencia, y consideramos que las mismas condiciones de estar en ya casi un año preelectoral, las mismas condiciones de los préstamos, la inseguridad jurídica que representa invertir en El Salvador, ha llevado a ponerlo quizás en pausa el tema de la minería. Eso no quiere decir de que no tengan las intenciones de hacerlo. Sin embargo, esas condiciones que menciono han permitido de que hayan cesado las operaciones y quizás estén creando las condiciones con más persecución, con más leyes represivas para poder implementarlo justo cuando pasen las elecciones. Entonces se vuelve ahora mismo más urgente, digamos, la lucha, la organización de las comunidades, porque este silencio para nosotros es hasta más peligroso que cuando están la presencia militar en el territorio. Entonces, eso pudiera decir respecto a esta pregunta.
Uh, Dinesh Suna has made, and he wants to draw attention to the 7 weeks of water campaign from the Ecumenical Water Network. And he's mentioning this as a tool to help us articulate different faith organizations around the world. So there is a link that you guys can look at this tool. And thank you, Dinesh, for sharing this information. And we'll see if there's. There is a question from Saul Baños that says, what is the reason that you think that the judicial resolution of the 5 Santa Marta members is being delayed? Hay una pregunta aquí, Alfredo, que pregunta cuáles serán las razones que consideran que están retrasando la resolución judicial de los compañeros ambientalistas. Y la pregunta es de Saúl Baños.
Pues gracias por la pregunta. Nuestra valoración es que estamos, o sea, haciendo, digamos, bueno, en realidad el caso Santa Marta fue como un experimento, digamos, de la estrategia de descabezar el movimiento. O sea, para explicar esto pasa por comprender quién está al frente, digamos, de los esfuerzos, y en este caso de la resistencia antiminera. Entonces, es de tener con doble propósito, de tener a unos y de esa manera apartarles de la lucha, pero por el otro meterle miedo al resto para que no se haga. Lo que pasa es que esta situación se les salió de las manos a partir de la resistencia que Santa Marta hizo desde el primer momento. Entonces, en ese sentido, pudiéramos decir de que la estrategia es, así como se retarda el régimen de excepción, por ejemplo, que es la estrategia de seguridad, entre comillas, más efectiva que el gobierno ha tenido. Entonces es retrasarla hasta donde le dure para mantener la popularidad. Y este caso, por ejemplo, de alargar los procesos jurídicos, pasa precisamente por eso, para ver hasta dónde les alcanza para en su empeño de frenar la resistencia en las comunidades, porque de esa manera el mensaje es para quienes no hemos sufrido persecución, es decir, miren, esto le hacemos a estas personas y también se lo podemos hacer a ustedes. Entonces es para mantener de alguna manera neutralizada. Y por el otro lado, liberarlo o cerrar el proceso sería como aceptar una derrota para el gobierno. Entonces, por lo tanto, quieren hacerlo, tener el impacto menos posible, creemos nosotros.
Gracias, Alfredo. Thank you, Alfredo. I'd like to acknowledge 2 more comments in the chat room. One is from Julio Gonzalez, who is a very well-known anti-mining activist from Guatemala, but also recognized through Central America, who is sending solidarity with brothers and sisters from El Salvador and denouncing that all mining companies should leave this territory. And also it's saying that we will continue in the struggle to defend the water. So thank you, Julio. Julio is a very good colleague of us, and also a member of the Madre Selva Collective, also part of the Central American Alliance of Mining. So gracias, Julio. We have another comment that's Veronica Fletcher saying that the Ecuadorian government also is giving several licenses to mining, as there is an offensive right now of mining corporations, not only through Central America, but through the whole Latin American and in the world, to have access to those resources that they need in order to continue the exploitation of the world. Also, Sean Cleary from Australia, as optimists, hopefully latest delays so that the eventual, we're optimists, hopefully the latest the delay is that the eventual success of the resistance from Santa Marta happens during the low periods of Christmas. Yeah, that could be a really good reason why they're waiting until Christmas to give the verdict. So, but that means that also they will give us a negative verdict when they have been declared innocent once again. And y bueno, I don't know if there is any other questions. If there is no more questions, I think we're running out of time. Thank you all for being here. And before we leave, we're going to give 1 minute to each of the speakers to say a closing statement, and hopefully oriented towards, like what are we going to do to continue this struggle in solidarity with the people of El Salvador, but also building global solidarity with all the communities that are struggling against mining. We'll start with John.
Yeah, thanks. Just briefly to say, you're all now part of this. Many of you have been in it for a long time, but we and international allies are planning for a week of action. There's a 5-day period at the end of March where we have the anniversary of the state of exception, the anniversary of the death of Saint Romero, and the anniversary 9th year since the passing of the legislation to ban all mining. And so we will be doing a series of actions around the globe to lift up the fight against mining. Think of things that your organization could do to join us. Over to Christy.
Thank you, John.
Yeah. So I just want to say thank you to all those who are here, and also I guess as a representative from the faith communities who have signed to the faith communities who from around the world, including partners who we work with, the United Church of Canada, who we have that privilege for signing on, all those who are part of this initiative. And then also just in the immediate, jump on some of those social media links that you've seen, share the video, share the IPS Twitter feed, share the United Church Facebook announcement. As Pedro was saying, social media counts in this struggle, and it's a sign of solidarity and support. So please do share those.
Thank you,
And then-
Christy.
Yeah.
And on to Gordon.
Gordon had to jump off, so I think we go to Susan.
Susan then.
One thing that I wanted to highlight is that there is uniform periodic review by the UN Human Rights Council. And I briefly looked at the 2025 report, and basically what it says is, oh, El Salvador is doing great because it's cracking down on the violence and going ahead and making the society safer for Salvadorans. One of the things that we need to do is to make sure that we use all of the avenues, including periodic review, to highlight the democratic the demise of democratic protections in El Salvador, as well as what's going on with respect to mining, because we need to draw the world's attention to this, and the UN Civil Rights Council can be one of those places, and the World Council of Churches all the time helps groups go ahead and articulate the problems that are happening in countries, and that's one of our remedies that we should be using.
Thank you, Susan. And that the last word to Alfredo. Alfredo, ¿todavía estás por aquí?
Sí, todavía. No, pues yo solo agradecer por la organización de esta plática y pues animarles pues a continuar con esta lucha, porque hoy, igual que en otros periodos de la historia de El Salvador, necesita mucho de la solidaridad y esta lucha la vamos a lograr a buen término con el apoyo de ustedes, de todas y todas. Muchas gracias.
Bueno, with that in mind, I'd like to thank everybody, and we're gonna close the event. We'll be sharing some of the materials that we have shared with you with our newsletter. And if you register for this event, or you received an email with information for this event, you will also be receiving an email with the different tools that we're sharing and other ones that we'll be developing along the course of this campaign over the next week or so. So thank you very much for joining, and have a great rest of the afternoon for everybody.